Welcome to my humble abode. I'm Yorkie the Talespinner, and this is Tales Over Coffee, a morning show where we start the day together with a cup of coffee and a narrative tale in the hope of welcoming a blessed day. And this is Suzerain, the continuing tale of Anton Rain's almost certainly failing presidency. Yeah, I think I backed him into a corner. We're getting close to the vote on the the constitutional changes, I believe. And I think it's going to fail, honestly. If I'm realistic, I don't see it succeeding. Our budget is also completely in the toilet, which doesn't exactly help us any. Check out this report. Illegal crossings rise at Welland border. Border police have reported an increased number of arrests as Bloody Shinvezek refugees attempt to enter the country of Welland without legal documents. Regardless, there are sights of groups of armed men and gangs crossing the border as well. Unfortunately, the border police had reported not having enough manpower to stop them. And that's with us having increased the police. They've really screwed things up down in Welland, haven't they? Valsland Navy are active in Markian Sea. The Helgeland Island has been a disputed territory for many years between Agnolia and Valsland, with Sordland standing in the sideline. Well, I'm not so sure, after Agnolia turned their back on us and started demanding things we weren't willing to give, that we're not going to keep our backs turned, to be honest. Valsland's increased naval activities in the Markian Sea are heightening a standoff between the two nations and sharpening their rivalry for each other. That could end up playing in our favour, we can only hope. Ownership changes of major corporations. Ah, yes. Well, the Burgier Steel, that's who we want to get rid of. Well, take over. Lucian and I arrived at the Ministry of Economy. Assistants took our coats and showed us to the meeting room where Simon, Edith, Gus and Mikhail were waiting. As soon as I entered, their chatter stopped and they stood up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seat. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder and proceeded to go over some of his documents. Greetings everyone, welcome to the Ministry of Economy. Without further ado, said Simon, we are here to discuss our economic move towards nationalization. Both Mikhail and Edith had their arms crossed and frowns on their face. They were listening intently. Mr. President, before you arrived, certain individuals in this room were voicing their opinion against the nationalization plan. But as I understand it, your decision has already been made. Which certain individuals were these? I say, looking at Mikhail and Edith. Me and Edith, Mr. President, said Mikhail. I am very much against the nationalization plan. And why is that? It's simple, really, said Edith. Nationalization could provide an improvement in terms of our economic development over the next year or two. In the long term, you are losing people's trust. If we turn our back on every promise we've made, we'll certainly lose their trust, won't we, Edith? Without trust, there can be little trade, especially if the government excessively nationalizes entire industries. Besides, it will cost us a proportional amount of government budget to nationalize. Are you saying that the state of Sordland is untrustworthy? No, of course not untrustworthy. That is not my point. Ms. Agnoch, said Lucian, don't forget whom you're speaking with. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? Mr. Hall, please continue. Thank you, Mr. Gillard, said Simon. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a nationalization plan, Mr. President. He handed me and everyone else in the room 2 neat stacks of documents. Please turn to page 14. So we do. As you can see, the documents, the first corporation up for discussion is Heart of Sordland. Just check some. I'll be right back. And we're back. Heart of Sordland. Led by fledgling CEO Marcel Caronti, Heart of Sordland recently observed a boost in their revenue. They control many media organisations across Sordland. Possible to see their imprints everywhere, from newspaper stands, convenience stores. In fact, they own more than half of the media products in the country. Sorry, I have a little chihuahua getting wound up in things. We all know how much of an effect media has on politics. That is the reason I think if we had to nationalise it, HOS should be our target. No, it shouldn't. I must admit, I myself am against fully nationalising any of these companies. And there's the chihuahua I mentioned. However, we could partially move the ownership of HOS to the state, gaining access to their income. That was loud. To help and end the recession and provide for our citizens. I'm inclined to agree with you from a political perspective. However, we are going to nationalise HOS. I think we should go all the way and fully move its ownership to the state. We're not going to nationalise them. Very well, please send 37. And so we do. I turn to page 37. The title was Burglary Steel. Burglary Steel. It is the largest private corporation in the Big Four, and therefore the largest in Sordland. It has been at the helm of a steel manufacturing for many years. It's led by current CEO and Lothar spokesman, Walter Tusk. I believe all of us in the room are familiar with him in one way or another. Yes, he's an enemy. What can I say? They have been widely successful since our founding. They have achieved renown, not only in Sordland, but worldwide. I believe we shouldn't attempt to break something that is already working. They're a monopoly, we need to break them. I'm against the nationalisation of Burglary Steel in any capacity. Not to mention any amount of nationalisation would be disastrous for both Burglary Steel and Sordland. Much of our steel trade is reliant on the TikTok, on their manufacturing capabilities. Come on up. At least you might stay calm if you're with me, huh? Much of our steel is reliant on their manufacturing. Any sudden change there would be likely to throw a screwdriver in a working engine. No matter what, we should refrain from nationalising them. It could result in economic crisis. I don't have so strong an opinion, but I will say that nationalising both Burglary Steel and HOS would be quite unwise. What if we fully nationalise them? Where do I start? They're quite literally the TikTok. They're quite literally the backbone of Sordland's private economy. If you do this, you will anger many powerful people. Trust me, you don't want that. That's a threat, Mikhail. No, Miss President, it's a fact. What are your thoughts on minority share? As I mentioned, I'm against making change to Burglary Steel's ownership, said Simon. We should leave the company as it is. I tend to agree, but only because HOS is the weaker of the two, and it is less risky to deal with them as opposed to giants like Burglary Steel. What about a majority share? This is, of course, a better option than full nationalisation, but that doesn't mean you'd be wise. You'd not face adversity. A majority share in Burglary Steel would experience a massive drop in status. This would surely anger a man like Walter Tusk. He's going to be angry. Tiki, you need to calm down. And if I make an understatement, he's not a forgiving man. No need to be afraid. If push comes to shove, if that day comes, Walter Tusk will learn Anton Rain is also not a forgiving man. As you say, I'm ready to make a decision. Sounds good. Let's go over the documents once again then. I read all of Simon's documents once more, then flipped to the last page. Out of Sordland, fully privatised. Burglary Steel will go for majority state-owned. Tiki! We're about to make change to the ownership of prominent companies in Sordland. Are you sure? Yes, I am. I signed the documents altering the ownership of the Big Four with a flourish. Simon leaned back in his chair. So, this is the path we're taking. This is absolutely ridiculous, said Mikhail. Simon, please tell me you're not fine with this. Please tell me that Mr. President did not just sign this order. He just did, Mr. Avon. There's nothing you can do about it. Mikhail turned to me, his eyes were wide with rage. He was clenching his face so hard that his hands were red from exertion. What? What have you done? You... Mikhail, don't, please, said Edith. You're making a great mistake, Mr. President. You have already chosen Heart of Sordland as a media conglomerate over Burglary Steel. A company that has spent decades defining steel manufacturing in this country. Sorry, no matter what I do, I can't understand your reasoning. Simple, really. It was the better choice. I see. It was Carpe, wasn't it? So he bought you. Mr. Raven, said Lucian, I want you to think very carefully about what you're going to say next. Tiggy, you really need to calm down. Yes, I know you saw a dog wandering around outside, but you need to calm down. You're in a recording studio. I'm not going to say anything. We're done here. Edith, I'll report the outcome of this meeting. I'm not going anywhere, said Edith. Mikhail turned to Edith with a sour face, his eyes shooting daggers. Suit yourself. And Mr. President. Mr. Tusk will hear about this. Of course he will. You can rest assured. He packed up his bag and started making his way to the entrance. Lucian got up from his seat and intercepted me on his way out. Put his hand on Mikhail's shoulder and spoke in a calm, soft voice. I'll be watching you. Mikhail didn't respond, he simply left. Edith leaned forward, getting my ear. Mr. President, I've had my fair share of experience. I understand when the cards are stacked against me. I want to assure you, you will find an ally in me. That's good, Edith. Sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to working with you. That's great to hear. I must leave now as well. I don't trust a word you say, Edith, but I will work with you while keeping an eye on you. That will be it for today then, said Simon. I know everyone has very busy schedules. Thank you all for coming. Good work, everyone. Indeed. I put the documents in my suitcase and left the room with Lucian. Government budget decreased even further. So much for the instant cash injection, which we kind of needed. Alright, well, such is life. We're going to bankrupt the country. You do realise that. And we have... Unified Education Language Act. That, we already know what it is. They're trying to demand that only Swordish be taught. No. There are those immigrants who need their own language to be the first language taught, with Swordish as an ESL, as an SSL, Swordish as a second language. So no. Result of Economic Direction, Office of President of Sordland, Maroon Palace. With nationalization decisions made, all that was left was for Sordland's two most prominent oligarchs to sign the paperwork, and so I called them both to the palace meeting room. Lucian showed Marcel Carpe and Walter Tusk in. They sat across the table from me, leaving one empty chair between them. Marcel was watching Walter with a vile smirk on his face. Aren't you enjoying this a bit too much? Come now, Walter, no need to be a sore loser. And watch your words, you're right in front of Mr. President. You little snake, you're just like your father. Whatever you say won't change the fact that you are done for. Your time will come. I apologise for the howling chihuahua here. I will try and keep this episode relatively short. This might be the last section we deal with for today. My dear chihuahua was out on the leash and there was a dog left running loose, so he's a little overexcited. Your time will come, be sure of that. That's enough, both of you. I'm not the one who puts it in this position, Mr. President. Now. Are you telling them to be careful? I agree with you. Mr. Tusk, you heard the President, said Lucian. Now then, before the conversation is derailed any further. Lucian moved over to Walter and found the agreement papers in front of him. Mr. Tusk, here is the agreement that pertains to the nationalization of Burglary Steel and the transfer of the entirety of your shares to the state. He pointed to various sections on various pages of the document. You'll need to sign here, here, and here. I won't sign anything without reading it first. Started going through the papers. When he finished, he turned back to the first page and went over the whole stack again, and again, and again. Stalling won't change the outcome. I have to make sure I understand an agreement that takes my whole life's effort away from me. He started checking his pockets. I don't have a pen. Marcel immediately... Tick-tock. No. Marcel immediately produced a pen from his pocket and put it in front of Walter with a toothy grin. Tick-tock. No. The pen had a large Heart of Sordland symbol on the name, with the name of the company engraved on it. There you go. Walter reluctantly signed the papers after letting out a deep sigh. My pen, please. Take your damn pen. He turned to me. I will never forget what you've done to me. Your time will come too, Mr. President, believe me. Did you just threaten the presence of Sordland? This is ridiculous. Know your place. Marcel's enjoying this. Mr. Rain, are you just going to stay silent in the face of these blatant threats? He needs to be punished swiftly. Surely you can't let him speak to you like that. You little... No need for escalation, Marcel. He doesn't have any power anymore. I wouldn't underestimate what he can do, Mr. President. An animal is most dangerous when it's cornered. This is true. But then, the one cornering it, if careful, can still take it out. A man with Tusk connections would prove difficult in the future for sure. Mr. Tusk. Yes, I will give him a warning. I've already... No, he might be recording this. No, there is no need. Very well. See, Walter? This is called graciousness and mercy. Two traits that you have never had. Your words don't work on me, Snake, said Walter. President Rain, you are being played by Marcel. Mark my words, one day he will turn on you as well. Not you, Walter, said Marcel. No matter what, I have my honour as a Caronte. And Carontes always keep their word. Don't underestimate me, said Walter. Rain, I hope I never see your face again in my life. Walter stuffed the agreement in his briefcase and exited the room. Closing the door with a loud bang, Marcel left shortly after. To win the Halsard Post, police launched successful raids. Earlier this week, police launched raids on shops and warehouses in Every City and Estord City. Their operations are reported to confiscate more than 2,000 illegal firearms and drugs. The captain of the police force in charge of these raids has released a statement saying that the shops are from two notorious crime families, the Skinner and Coronelli family. Those operations were only possible due to law enforcement budget increase. It allowed us to launch investigations of the local police, purging the corrupted ones and getting information about their networks, said the Ministry of the Interior. It appears that thanks to President Anton, law and order will soon come back to Sordland. Nationalization of Burglary Steel. Today, the government has announced changes to the ownership of one of the two largest corporations in Sordland. Under President Rain's new nationalization plan, a sizable portion of Burglary Steel will now belong to the state. The move is expected to... of course we had to, I suppose, provide compensation for the shares. This move is expected to reduce the extraordinary amount of control the oligarchs have over the Swedish economy. The ex-CEO of Burglary Steel, Walter Tusk, has been silent on the matter and refrained from making any comments so far. Rain's hostile takeover. President Rain's never-ending war on free economy continues as he announced the most ridiculous plan to date: partial nationalization of Burglary Steel. Instead of trying to actually solve the recession, he has blamed everything on one or two large private companies of Sordland in a blatant escapism. In the short term, a sizable portion of the assets of Burglary Steel will be moved to state control. In the long term, this decision sets back our country for at least 20 years. With the state now owning a part of Burglary Steel, the competitive nature of the free market will slowly disappear in Sordland and will cause a stagnation. Nationalisation has never been the solution when it comes to recession, and President Rain has just doomed his own chance of ending the recession in his term. What do we have here? Assembly vote on the constitutional... I do want to see that. See how badly this goes. Surge was driving me towards the Grand National Assembly for today's historic vote. It's a big day. I wondered whether my attempt at changing the constitution would end any differently than Alfonso's. I looked out of the window as the noise of the city diminished and saw that we were already inside the palace complex. The complex housed the buildings of all government branches in the centre of Halsord. It was one of the biggest developments in Sordland. The Maroon Palace stood on a small hilltop, surrounded by trees. We passed by the palace and into the forest that separated it from the Grand National Assembly. We drove on the small road that wound through the forest. It was a warm day, so I rolled down my window. I could hear birds singing from the trees. Are you okay back there, sir? I'm okay. How are you doing? I'm as good as I can be, sir. Serge made a left turn out of the forest and entered the vast garden area of the assembly. Did you know that Mr. Tarquin Sol came to Halsall this morning? I heard some politicians talking about it today. Apparently this is the first time he's come to the city in the last 5 years. I thought he left the mainland and lived in Dour Island, never to return back to politics, but they were saying he might be here to exercise his Member of Honor rights for the first time. Who was talking about this? I overheard several men talking about it around the gardens of the assembly, sir. I'm not sure who they were. Vicky, you're overexcited, boy. It could be rumours, of course. You think he's here about today's vote? I hardly doubt that he's here about what to eat for breakfast, Serge. Yes, Serge, most likely. Well, I'm sure he will support you, sir. I'm not. I doubt that. Serge drove inside the gates of the parkway and parked the car. We've arrived, sir. Thank you, sir. Of course, sir. Good luck with the vote. I walked up the white stone steps of the Grand National Assembly. The entrance looked like a temple gate from the classical era. The door opened to reveal vast corridors of wood and white stone. I joined the crowd of people who were walking slowly toward the parliamentary hall. Suddenly, I noticed Lucien emerge from the crowd of packed politicians in front of me. He looked relieved when he saw me. Ah, sir, there you are. Have you seen Vice President Vectern? He's nowhere to be found. I've just arrived here, Lucien. I hope Mr. Vectern arrives soon. At any rate, about yourself. Are you ready to finally face the assembly, sir? Lucien, I've just heard something worrying from Serge. We'll address that later, sir. Lucien, I asked for your attention. Come, we must go inside. Perhaps we're pushed for time. Fair enough, Lucien. We followed the crowd into the parliamentary hall. After we were inside, Lucien and I separated to take our assigned seats. You remember how gaining votes from one group relied on us offering them the vice presidency? Well, part of the reason I agreed to that was I think Peter Vectern is becoming less and less reliable. We followed the crowd into the parliamentary hall. After we were inside, Lucien and I separated to take our assigned seats. We went up to the mezzanine overlooking the hall and sat down. I waited as the MPs took their places inside the hall one by one. Stop howling. After a while, I saw Gloria walk to her elevated seat at the centre of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will shortly begin today's agenda of the USP's proposed changes to the Constitution of Sordland. After a while, everybody was in their seat. Is she going to introduce Sol as Speaker? According to the current Constitution, constitutional amendments require 2/3 majority in order to reach Assembly approval. If the vote succeeds, the proposal will be sent to the Supreme Court. The proposal in question includes these points. Started reading the proposal to the Assembly. First section changes Article 57 is modified with the following. He continued reading the proposal, highlighting each section. Section 2, paragraph 36, she went on. May not exercise his right to, and on. The justices of the Supreme Court, most of the MPs seemed like they were already falling asleep. A simple majority is considered. The seat was really hurting my back. Section 4, paragraph 44. It felt like an eternity had passed. Finally, she finished reading the changes. I hereby invite all of you to vote. TikTok. I'm hoping that my what do they call it, noise gate is cutting out most of what TikTok is doing. He's being rather rambunctious this morning, I'm afraid. She struck her gavel down. The loud bang made some MPs jump up in shock. They woke from their deep sleep. As previously stated, it will require 2/3 majority in order to pass. You may now cast your votes. I felt the need to stand up and stretch. I looked down the hall at the platform I was seated on. Some Assembly members immediately walked to the ballot box to cast their votes. Most of them, however, began to congregate in groups around the hall, discussing the changes. Go down to where they are. As soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs, Casero Kibner approached me. Mr. President, how are you feeling about the votes? I'm hoping for the best. The best outcome is for this proposal is failure. I've lost my respect for you, Mr. Rain. So many problems in Sordland that must be addressed, and yet you insist on stalling us with your democratic reforms. I know you will fail, you will lose the game, and so will your entire administration. I hope to be there when it happens. Keep hoping, Mr. Kibner. He laughed. He abruptly turned away from me and walked down towards his seat. Then I saw Lucian waving at me. He was among a group of people in the corner of the hall. I walked over to him. On my way, I bumped into Manson Lake. Oh. Mr. President, I'm sorry I didn't see you there. I wish you good luck with the votes. Today's a big day for you, after all. Big day for all of us. Most of the independents will be voting yes, Mr. President. Even though we feel it doesn't address the issues we care about the most, it's still a step in the right direction. But I have to say we were disappointed when we first read the proposal. I'm sorry it disappointed you. I could say we've done our best, but that might sound like I'm brushing him off. I'll acknowledge his disappointment. I hope you don't ignore Bloody's rights as well, Mr. President. I've got to cast my vote. He shook my hand and walked away. I finally reached Lucian, now deep in conversation with another member of our party. He excused himself and turned to me. Sir, did you vote yet? We have to be quick. No, let's vote. I signed my vote and prepared the envelope. Together, Lucian and I walked to the centre of the hall, cast our votes. He kept rushing me throughout the process. Gloria bowed her head slightly in respect as she saw us vote. Lucian pulled on my arm and whispered in my ear. Mr. President, we may have a problem. Tarquin Sol is here. I know. You have to accelerate the voting process. We need everybody to vote as soon as possible. We don't know what he's capable of right now, but if Assembly members see him, he might influence them against the proposal. Should I talk to him? I would advise against that right now. The Assembly must focus on the vote. Any confrontation between the two of you would draw their attention away. I'm not going to act like a child and start shouting at them. She's not going to speed it up. That's why she was slowing it down. Let's just go back to our seats. Any noise we make will distract everyone further. Suddenly Lucian pulled me aside. Sir, what do we do? He pointed to the back of the assembly near one of the exits. I followed his finger to see Tarquin Sol sitting there. He looked very much older than he had 5 years ago, but I could tell he had the same fire in him. Some MPs had already gathered around him and were chatting in awe. The assembly gradually went quiet as people started to notice Sol's presence in the hall. I'll go talk to him. We should refrain from giving the spotlight he expects. He's already got the spotlight, Lucian. You're too late. Maybe you can address him after the vote. As I was talking to Lucian, I spotted Kesaro Kibner walking to the back of the hall toward Tarquin Sol. He bowed in front of Sol and gave him a military salute. Seeing this, more people started to approach him. Suddenly, Gloria came up behind us. Gentlemen, why don't you go back to your seats? Let's follow the procedure. You're not saying that to anyone else, are you, Gloria? Oh, by the way, we have 251 members today. As you can see, the member of honour is here. He's already cast his votes. Has he now? So, Mr. Tory, how many votes are missing? Only a few. Alden Clavin and 3 other men approached us with envelopes in their hands. And these must be them. Good day to you, gentlemen, Madam Speaker, said Albin. Good day, Mr. Clavin. I'm sorry to take so long, Mr. President. There was a friend who needed more clarification for his votes. He gestured at the men behind him. Let's get this over with, gentlemen. They went ahead and cast their votes. Let's win this, Mr. President. Walked towards his seat with his fist in the air. Now, why don't you two get back to your seats as well? Very well, we shall. We both went back to our seats. When I returned back to the mezzanine, I saw Petra sitting in a chair next to mine. Where were you? I was right here. Where were you? Petra. No, you were not. I was here until voting began. I mean, maybe I was not in these exact seats, sure, but I was here in the assembly. He looked at Gloria as she and her assistants counted the votes. Where were you, Petra? The speaker's seat is only a few meters away from our platform. I really hope this proposal goes through. Sol is here. What? He's at the back of the hall. He tried to get Gloria's attention by waving at her. How many votes left? Gloria looked at Peter. She looked annoyed. 136 ayes, 40 more votes to count. Peter turned to me. We need 30 out of the last 40. Damn. We're going to get this. Come on. Petter looked uneasy. He pointed to where Friends Richter was sitting. Look at Friends over there. I'm sure he was behind this mess. You shouldn't have trusted him. It's not over yet, Petter. Don't jump to conclusions. I rather suspect you're making a power play, to be honest, Petter. Well, a single bang from Gloria's gavel reverberated across the hall. Everyone fell silent. The voting has been concluded. I lean forward to hear the results. The proposal has 166 ayes and 85 nays, failing to pass the two-thirds majority threshold. I heard a chorus of angry outbursts from the USP seats. Wait, what? Order, ladies and gentlemen, due to the Member of Honour's attendance, two-thirds threshold corresponds to 167 votes, which the proposal has failed to reach. Ha 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 ha, crafty. Thereby, the Grand National Assembly has rejected changes to the Constitution. I turn to Petter. That's written into the Constitution. Petter? I rather suspect you're behind this. You would likely be in a position to have, working with me, to have a good idea as to whether it was necessary to bring in a casting vote. Must be kidding me. I know, this just happened. The assembly was roaring all kinds of different reactions. I felt destroyed. I lowered my head and closed my eyes for a second. God, I'm sorry. It's okay. We'll find another plan. The MPs kept shouting in the hall. Among them, I heard Friend Richter's voice. I blame the President for this result. He and his party's weak attitude towards real change doomed him from the start. His unorthodox methods of persuasion, I'm sure, have been experienced by most of us here. This is a corrupt administration we're dealing with. He's just like his predecessors, enjoying the privilege of the presidency, while ignoring the responsibility that comes with it. It's time to realise that change will only come from real reformists. The People's Freedom and Justice Party will keep leading this movement. The reformist MPs started applauding him. Suddenly I noticed Tarquin Sol slowly rising to his seat at the back. He seemed to be struggling and using his cane for help. He stood and gazed around the hall as members of the Grand National Assembly went silent. Keep watching him. He walked out the exit as two of his guards held the doors for him. Thank God he didn't do anything. Sol or no Sol, we are definitely fucked. Neither the party nor the public is going to be pleased. Damn it. We need to hold an emergency meeting to plan our next moves. We both looked down at the floor for a while. After regathering our thoughts, Petter and I walked out of the main assembly hall. We waited for Serge by the entrance. I haven't seen this political overview before. Well. Well. We'll conclude with the news. The Assembly voted against constitutional changes. The Grand National Assembly of Sordland on Friday rejected the amendment to the Constitution that was proposed by USP. I officially announced the rejection of the constitutional amendment, said Speaker Gloria Tory, as the proposal was rejected in a public session. According to Tory, 166 lawmakers voted in favour of the amendments, failing to suppress the threshold, even though 106 votes are normally required for the amendments to pass. Due to the attendance of the Member of Honour, the threshold was shifted to correspond to two-thirds, as written in the Constitution. One member of the Assembly abstained from voting in the session, attended by 251 members of the 250-seat Parliament, including President Rain and Member of Honour Tarquin Sol. It was close, but it didn't have one member didn't vote. If they'd voted for us, TikTok, calm yourself. If they'd voted for us, it would have carried. The dead have risen, old man Torquin Sol crawled out of his crypt and dragged himself to Hullsword for a single purpose, to vote against Anton Rain's constitutional reforms, and it worked. Reforms lost by a single vote, meaning Sol and his dusty constitution will continue to shape Sordland for years to come. We didn't have high hopes for Rain's challenge in the first place, but the failure is nonetheless discouraging. Thanks to Sol, we may never have another chance like this in our lifetime. Also thanks to the person who abstained. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that was Petter. And with this, I must end here. Farewell.